Hello again. Thanks for tuning in this week and thanks for watching. I'm going to go through some March numbers this week, and March isn't really shaping up to too great of a spring so far. We did just enter spring, but March numbers don't look too promising. Sales are down and whatnot, but I'm going to get into those in just a minute. First, I want to talk about kind of the fine line between my realtor's code of conduct when it comes to representing a client's best interest and while remaining professional and representing the industry. And myself, some could say I walk a fine line, and my ultimate goal is to be out for the consumer, to be out for the buyers, the end users. You know how I am, you know what I talk about on this channel. But again, there is a fine line, and I have to watch what I say because I don't agree with everything all the time. Just like in many industries, they don't agree, whether it is teachers or the medical field, especially these days, policing. There's all sorts of fields that have a code of conduct where they have to represent the industry, but they don't always agree and they can't publicly voice those opinions. And no, I'm not in trouble. So this is nothing to do with anything like that. It comes up in my daily uh, explorations and comments and Twitter feed where, I want to say certain things, but I think, oh, I shouldn't really say that because it's not going to look good on other realtors. It's not going to look good for the industry and whatnot. So to clarify, let me just go through the kind of conflict that I deal with or my issues when I'm dealing with, again, who do I represent? Do I represent the consumer? Do I represent the industry? I represent both. But when it comes to that push and shove, whose side do I take? And there are sides that need to be taken sometimes. But anyway, let's just read what it says and you can see what I mean. So this is the TRESA. This is the code of conduct for TRESA, the Trust in Real Estate Services Act, that all Ontario realtors are bound by, and actually all realtors in Canada and then even in the US, they would have a similar code of conduct. So first we have unprofessional conduct, etc. A registrant shall not engage in any act or omission that, having regard to all of the circumstances, would reasonably be regarded to as being disgraceful, dishonorable, unprofessional, or unbecoming as a registrant. So many things could be unprofessional or unbecoming, like just swearing in public. They could say, well, you're a realtor, you can't swear. Or, certain medical professionals these days, too, you can't say, I don't like that drug or I like this drug. So, again, it's a kind of a vague and broad spectrum that we're bound by. But are we acting in a professional manner or not? That's another question. Anyway, let's continue on here. B, likely to bring the sector into disrepute or undermine public confidence in the regulation of registrants under the Act. So, again, a pretty broad scope there. Pretty much don't badmouth the industry or the rules or the act or the regulations that we are bound by, whether you agree with them or not. So, it kind of generally covers everything in that statement. Now, at the same time, when we are talking about clients and customers, we're looking at the best interests of the clients. So, a registrant that represents a client shall promote and protect the best interests of the registrant's clients. So again, I go back to this fine line. Sometimes, to protect your client's best interests, you may have to say or may not be representing the association in the best manner either, because you might not agree. And of course, your client comes first, and I'm that way too. My client always comes first. And if I had to choose one, you know who I'm going to choose. Now, hopefully, it wouldn't be public, but again, there are these gray areas, right, that you have to choose. Now, further to that, I would like to say that there are many, many good agents out there, and there are many not so good agents. So, again, I wouldn't badmouth the whole industry as a whole. Even if you've had a bad experience, there are very many good agents, and I give them kudos. It's just sometimes they're not as visible as maybe the bad ones. Of course, the good ones don't get the good press, where the bad ones get the bad press, right? And I'm saying this because of the comments I get, and I'll read them in a few minutes. But again, these are not cherry picked comments. These are the comments that I get. And in general, especially when the market's not doing so well or people are losing money, the agents are the first to get thrown under the bus, and so are the mortgage brokers and everybody else. Now, I do have my opinion, obviously, about the industry, both positive and negative, but it would be deemed dishonorable, unprofessional, and unbecoming to publicly announce any negative ones, which I try not to do. But anyway, let's see what the public, you, and these are from the YouTube comments, had to say just within the last week. And again, I didn't cherry pick these. I literally just searched my comments for realtor, and the consensus wasn't good. And I didn't provoke this response. This was just in response to my last video, and I said something about what do you think about do you need buyer's agents or not because of the new laws, or the lawsuit, I should say, in Canada that's kind of following what the states did, right? And these were the comments just in the last week alone, and these aren't all of them. These are just the ones that I picked out that were easy to read, but there wasn't many good ones. But let's read through them. Realtors are unnecessary thieves. There needs to be laws forcing all bids to be public knowledge. Thieving middlemen. Who do you think drove up prices in housing? Cheap money and corrupt realtors. You hear the words sold over asking, broker of record, lying, self-serving bunch. Sell your own houses, especially in the hot market. And then their exorbitant commissions. Come on, all you need is a lawyer and each end of the transaction. Wake up, Canadians, and so on. That person definitely wasn't too happy with realtors. I found I was able to buy myself without a buying agent just fine. There may be some good realtors out there, but I haven't found any. I don't like cocky, show off real estate agents, agents that are undercover investors and sabotage your property for their own self interest. But other than that, you do need realtors in the game just as much as you need lawyers or other professionals if they stay within their job boundaries. With so many agents and realtors in Canada, commission should be rock bottom. That they aren't is proof positive that a price fixing cabal exists. Realtors are involved big time in hiking price through the roof by faking dummy offers. Without them, market could have not been so much inflated. So, not a very good consensus about real estate agents or realtors these days out there in the market. And this is a common occurrence, whether it's on YouTube or on X. I get comments like this all the time. And of course, realtors, they can't share their opinion, how they feel about other realtors, about the industry in general. But this is from the public. So I'll just leave that there. Now I want to get into the March numbers. And first of all, we're going to start off, and it kind of links into the same theme here. The first chart or charts I'm going to show you here, again, these are from Ontario. This is what you see and what you've been told. And I'm not saying this is by other realtors, but again, it's definitely not from me. But what you see is average price in the Toronto Real Estate Board and ITSO. Of course, all we remember is the last 3 months, prices are going up, you better buy now. And this is kind of the story that many people hear. And again, this is whether it's from a realtor or whether it's from your neighbor or your parents. And I have people tell me, my parents tell me this and to buy. And actually, I have realtors telling me they better buy now. This is their last chance. So again, this is from everybody, the kind of general consensus. And looking at this chart here, well, yeah, you probably should buy if you're just looking at this data. But when we dig further into this data here, I'm going to expand this chart out. This is the same data, but it's going back to January 2022 now instead of just back to January 2024. And you can see, okay, well, the prices really haven't moved much. They're still down from their peak. There's really no urgency to buy here. It looks like a regular spring uplift in prices at this point. Do I see them going back to the peak at this point with higher interest rates and recessions looming and layoffs happening all over the place? No, probably not. I think it's just a regular spring uptick in pricing, just like we see every year. So now we're going to look at the data, and the data gets worse from here when you look at all the other metrics. So this is the number of days to sell, and this is just every March for the last 10 years. And the reason I go back only 10 years is because the data I can pull goes back 10 years. I could hand pick it further, but it's going to take me all day. I don't have all day to do this, but let's just go back with the 10 years. Again, these are all Marches, the days to sell. And you can see 2024 so far. This is the first 25 days in March. All these next charts are the first 25 days in March. And yeah, it seems regular. It's obviously not as low or as hot as it was in 2021 and 22, but it's kind of in line with the last 5 years or so for days to sell for both TREB and ITSO. Moving on to the number of sales. Of course, we aren't at the end of the month yet. We're only 25 days in. I pulled this data on the 26th day, so it is the full 25 days. And of course, the sales are pretty low, though, when you're looking at both ITSO and TREB. They are low, but we still do have 6 days left in the month. So let's break that down into the sales per day so we can see how March is really performing up until this point. Now, when looking at the sales per day, we are at the lowest point in over a decade. In this last decade that I have here, and most likely further if we went back, you can see Treb is well below any other March since 2014, and so is ITSO. So again, the sales per day, when you break it down like that, not doing so well. Now, I'm not just going to cherry pick this data. Let's keep going here. Here's the new listings for March. And of course, we don't have the full month. So let's break it down by new listings per day for both Treb and ITSO. And they are kind of more along the norms, right? Except for 2021 and 2022. There was actually tons of listings, tons of sales, obviously, on those times too. But we are kind of normal, not below like we were with the sales per day. So again, this is a good representation of how March is doing right now because we don't have the full data. But let's look at the last metric here, which is the sales to new listings ratio. And this kind of gives us a really good picture of how good the month is doing. And is it a buyer's market, seller's market, all the rest of that. Since this is based on the sales and new listings, it doesn't matter at what point we do this during the month, the first 25 days or the first 10 days, it doesn't matter. But again, this is the first 25 days. We are at the lowest for both Toronto Real Estate Board by far and ITSO, the 20 board surrounding GTA, that we have been for in over a decade. So all in all, March sales are dismal right now. Yeah, prices are up because of that FOMO or those talk of interest rates going down. But when you look at the actual sales number and the sales to new listings numbers, it is the worst March in over a decade. Again, if I went back further, who knows how far this would go? I'm guessing it wouldn't go past 2008 or 2009. So, depending on how you look at it and who you talk to, you could hear from, say, one realtor or one professional or one mortgage broker that prices are going up. You better buy now. It's the spring, yes, but this is your last chance. And I've heard this from people. This is your last chance. Like if you don't buy, you better buy now. And then when we look at the sales data or the sales to new listings data, it is down. Let's look at this again here. It is down to 40% in Treb. 40%. That's like on the verge of being a buyer's market. It pretty much is a buyer's market. And in ITSO, it's 46%. So both of those are in balanced territory, but closer to the buyer's end of the balanced territory. Yeah, prices are going up, but we're almost in a buyer's market. So that's that spring effect and that early year price increase effect, which will wane off very shortly. Again, I think I called for it a week or two ago that we are probably going to see an early end to the spring season this year, just like we did in 2021. And 2022, of course, was the apocalyptic end of spring. But yeah, be careful out there. And especially when you're paying over asking or getting into these bidding war situations. And again, this is more centralized in the greater Toronto area where the high demand is usually higher. But looking at the sales to new listings number, we're almost in buyer's territory. Okay, so that's it for this week. And share in the comments your experience with your realtor, whether it's good or bad. I know there's lots of great stories out there. I know lots of great realtors. And of course, unfortunately, there's some bad ones or many bad ones. I don't know the exact ratio. I wish there was a way to figure that out. But yeah, share your stories in the comments, good and bad. I'd love to read them. And until next week, I'll see you then.